The elves of the Myandar Starfleet were seeing the last days of their time in escort of an ambassador of the Arbkind Empire. Their diplomatic mission was turning out to be very successful, with fruitful negotiations of trade for both parties. It was just then that Commander Krundal sensed a wave of destructive force approaching their location in the verdurous Arb settlement. Having confirmed with the outer security that a band of Orc raiders were closing in, Krundal warned the ambassador of the oncoming threat. "Ambassador, you must leave now and head for the nearest spaceport." "Spaceport? What is it?" "It's a facility with a lot of spaceships, but that's not important right now. We have sighted a group of hostile orcs heading this way. I will place one of my squads to continue the escort and take you to safety. In the meantime, we will need to hold the enemy off and buy you time. Don't worry, my lieutenant and I are more than capable of handling this. We will rendezvous at Sector 4. The elven captain reassured the ambassador in a calm tone, but the ambassador saw through the mask that was hiding the gravity of the situation. He feared he may not see the captain again, but it was all the more reason to follow his instructions. He stood up straight and nodded. "In that case, I will wish you both good luck. We're all counting on you." This is a game of OnePageRules Grimdark Future version 3.3.1. We play using the basic rules with 2000 point lists adhering to force organization. I play the High Elf fleet while my opponent plays the Orc Marauders. Here is my list. An Elven Noble is attached to a unit of gliders. He is equipped with glider wings so he can ambush and fly. He carries a Master Shard Carbine and is also a High Seer with Caster 3. One of the gliders carries a Shred Blaster. I have another Elven Noble who is also a High Seer. He carries an Impact Rocket Launcher and a Killing Axe, so both in melee and shooting he can deal deadly 3 damage against multi-wounded targets. I have a combined unit of 6 elemental strikers carrying combat shields and energy swords. Each model is tough 3. I also have the Great Elemental, which is bigger and allegedly meaner. As well as its melee attacks from the Great Elemental Sword and the Stomping, it carries 2 Flamers whose reliable Blast 3 attacks should work well for crowd control. Furthermore, it has the Elemental Seer upgrade, giving it the Caster 2 ability, which I won't forget this time. I have a unit of 10 Retributors in a hybrid configuration of melee and shooting. Just 2 models are equipped with twin shard carbines, giving the unit 8 shots for ranged attack. 1 model has a flicker shield, giving the unit regeneration. 7 models are equipped with combat shields and energy swords. Finally, I have a support artillery unit that has a long range with 4 Blast 3 attacks that can deal up to 12 hits without needing line of sight against a target unit. For my opponent's list, one of the Orc boss leader is mounted on a beast. He carries an Ultra Claw which has AP4, a boss pistol, and also gains attack from the beast's jaw. He is accompanied by bikers who have replaced their bikes with beast mounts. They're a fast unit, but the boss has a Battle Chief ability that makes them very fast, giving them a charge range of 20 inches. There are 2 other units of bikers that have replaced their bikes with beast mounts. They will all be referred to Beast Riders in this video rather than bikers. Then we have a boss leader on foot, accompanied by a mob of 10 orcs. The boss carries an Ultra Claw and has the Battle Chief ability making the unit fast. One of the mob orcs carries an Ultra Saw that can deal deadly 3 damage, and another carries an Ultra Claw, while the rest has normal close combat weapons. The unit is upgraded with a War Banner that gives them Fear 2. We have a similar unit with a boss leader and 10 orcs on foot. This one doesn't have the Battle Chief upgrade, so it travels at regular speed. There's yet another unit of 10 orc mob, unaccompanied by a hero. They have the same weapons as the other mob units, but do not have the upgrades. Then we have a unit of 3 specialist orcs that have bomb hammers that are AP4 and deadly 3 to do some damage on the armoured units. A unit of jetpack orcs, accompanied by an orc leader, will be able to swoop into the battlefield, turn 2 onwards, with their jetpacks that give them the ambush and the flying ability. The orcs have a truck to transport one of the orc mob units and the specialist unit. It has a base of transport 11, but the boarding plank gives an additional transport 5, so a total of 16 models can be carried by it. It is a fast vehicle, but the red paint job upgrade gives it a speed boost, and therefore has a maximum of 20-inch movement. It has been added a wrecking ball, which increases its impact in melee from 3 to 8. Finally, we have a buggy that is equipped with a rocket launcher, and it also has a red paint job upgrade. It has the Gunmaster upgrade, which gives an additional hit with its ranged weapon on a hit roll of a 6. For this game, we have 5 objectives. The 2 sides alternate in placing the objective markers. The High Elves win the roll-off for board edge selection and initiative, so they deploy first. Both sides declare ambush units. The High Elves keep the Noble attached to the gliders in reserve, while the Orcs keep the jump pack Orcs in reserve to deploy turn 2 onwards. The Orcs also declare the units that are in the truck. A unit of 10 Orc mob without hero attached, and a unit of 3 specialists. Remember that the truck has the boarding plank upgrade to allow the additional capacity to fit all the models. The Elves deploy first, starting with a combined unit of Striker Elementals in the centre. A unit of Beast Riders appear on the left edge of the Orc deployment zone. The lone Elven Noble is deployed opposite them. Another unit of Beast Riders are placed on the right edge of the Orc deployment zone. The Great Elemental is placed between the Elven Noble and the Striker Elementals. The Orc Buggy is placed on the left side next to one of the Beast Riders. The combined unit of Retributors are placed on the right, opposite the second Beast Rider unit. The Beast Riding Orc Boss and his fellow riders are placed on the centre right, behind one of the buildings. The Elven Artillery is placed between the Great Elemental and the 6 Striker Elementals, behind some trees. With all the Elven units deployed, the rest of the Orcs are deployed. The Orc truck fills the centre gap with the 2 units of Orc mob, both accompanied by Orc bosses, placed on either side of it. The Elven Striker Elementals advance forward onto Objective 2. The Orc buggy drives forward and fires at the Elementals that have exposed themselves. The rocket hits on a roll of 6 and adds another hit due to the shoot-you rule. The Elementals fail one of the defense rolls, and the rocket impact decapitates a single ancient drone, scattering chunks of the magic-imbued ceramic it was made of. The Elven Noble on the left moves forward and takes aim at the Beast Riders ahead. However, just as the advanced rocket left the Noble's heavy weapon, the target beast mount ducks down to sniff on some animal droppings that it spotted on the ground, and as a result, the rocket soars past, missing its mark. At the centre, the Orc Battle Chief leads his mob forward to position them behind the building in front of them, denying their enemy line of sight against his unit. Unfortunately for them, the Elven Heavy Artillery needs no such requirement, and the rounds from the burst mortar fall upon them mercilessly. 3 hits with Blast 3 deals a total of 9 hits, and the Orcs manage to defend against only one of them. As a result, 8 models are removed from the unit. The leadership of the Battle Chief remains ever present as the unit passes its morale test. Having felt a rocket fly past them, the Beast Riders on the left dash forward towards the Elven Noble. The Great Elemental moves forward alongside the Elven Noble and on Objective 1. The Orc truck drives forward, right between the Striker Elementals and the lone Great Elemental. On the right side, the squad of Retributors advances forward, keeping out of charge range of the Orc cavalry units ahead. Thus ends the activation of the last unit in the High Elf army. The Orcs still have 5 units to activate. The second Orc boss on foot takes his mob forward, trailing behind the truck and onto both Objectives 3 and 4, which is a very smart move. The Beast Riders on the right side break cover, riding around the trees and over Objective 5. The mounted Orc boss lets out a war cry, signalling his Beastie Boys to ride forward with him. They end up past the central building between the Striker Elementals and the Retributors, ready to give a mighty pounce at either of them next turn. The passengers of the truck leap out of their transport, starting with a unit of 3 specialist orcs. The trio of saboteurs charge at the greater elemental. The towering elven construct nimbly dodges the attacks from its assailants with a surprising amount of grace. However, as one of the orcs snigger with malice, it detects a sticky bomb planted on its back moments before it detonates. The great elemental suffers 3 wounds and now has 9 remaining. The explosion knocks it off balance, but the elemental lands forward with its free hand on the ground, and straight away it performs a flare, sweeping its legs in an arc that knocks away all 3 orc specialists. The orcs have dealt some damage, but the unit is wiped out in return. The remaining orcs leap out of the truck to go for the target on the opposite side, the unit of 5 striker elementals. The attack from the saw misses. 14 hits from the close combat weapons deal 3 wounds, and another wound is inflicted by the Ultra Claw. With a total of 4 wounds inflicted, the elemental unit loses its second model. In return, the elementals swing their energy swords, hitting 7 times and kill 5 of the orcs. Having lost the combat, the orc mob takes a morale test and passes. At the end of the turn, the High Elves capture Objective 1, while the Orcs capture Objective 3, 4 and 5. Objective 2 is contested. Both sides declare ambush. The jetpack Orcs descend from the sky and land in the Elven backline, preparing to take down the artillery. The winged Elven noble and his gliders pursue the enemy reserve, appearing behind the Retributors. The Elven noble casts Destroyer with 4 spell tokens so that the spell goes off on a 2+, and it does. The spell deals 6 hits and the Orcs fail to make a single defense roll, and is wiped out. Somewhat surprised by the utter success of the spell attack, the Elves reposition forward between the Striker Elementals and the Retributors, taking aim at the trio of Beast Riders on the right. The Elven Noble once again casts a spell, this time Soul Seeker, with the remaining 2 spell tokens, and it succeeds. A single wound is inflicted on the Squigs. Finally, he and his unit fire everything at the same target. A total of 8 shots from the Laser Blasters, and 7 rending shots from the Noble's Shard Carbine and the Glider Sergeant's Shred Blaster. They manage to wipe out one of the Orc cavalry units. The other unit of Beast Riders, accompanied by a boss leader, charges at the Retributors, who form a shield wall. The Orc boss and the rider with the Ultra Claw together kill 2 Retributors, and the Beast mounts moor down 3 more, killing a total of 5 Elves. The retribution of the Retributors deal 3 wounds, killing off a single Beast Rider exactly. The Retributors lose the combat, but they hold their ground as they pass the morale test. On the other side of the battlefield, the lone Elven Noble mirrors the spell attacks of the Winged Noble, targeting the Beast Riders in front of him. He successfully casts Destroyer and deals 4 wounds. A single Beast Rider is killed and another has 2 wounds remaining. The Noble attempts to cast Soul Seeker but fails to get that 3+ roll he needed. He immediately proceeds to shoot his impact rocket again, which hits, and with deadly 3 damage, it kills off the second Beast Rider, leaving a single Orc and its Beast mount alive. Luckily, he passes the morale test and stands firm. The one unit of Orc mob still at full strength charges at the Great Elemental. The Elemental parries the deadly saw with his Great Shield, but is then jumped on by 2 Orcs that manage to latch on. One tears off the armor on one of its kneecaps, and the other breaks off an antenna protruding from the Elemental's back. Another Orc with a Power Claw strikes the damaged leg of the Elemental, forcing it to lose balance and bringing it down to one knee. With its head lowered, the boss leader accompanying the mob swings his own Ultra Claw unreservedly, and the Haymaker hits right at the Elemental's Ceramite jaw. A total of 5 wounds were inflicted, leaving the Great Elemental down to 4 wounds remaining. Having taken a good battering, the inner rage burns silently within the Elven Behemoth. It quickly grabs an Orc by its head and drives him into the ground along with another. It then gets up and punts another Orc all the way against the center building, where it is splattered on the wall. The Elemental swings his greatsword in a horizontal arc, catching one Orc who had failed to duck like the rest of them. A total of 4 Orcs were killed. As the Great Elemental's Fear 2 is cancelled out by the Orc Warbanner, the Elemental loses the combat, but it is determined to stand ground as it passes its morale test. The Elven artillery fires again, targeting the Orc mob that came out of the truck in the previous turn. They're right in front of the unit of Striker Elementals, but since when did Shepard care about danger close? With a perfect aim, the burst round deals 12 hits and wipe off the remnants of the unit. The boss leader, who previously suffered loss in his unit from artillery fire, rallies the remaining 2 orcs to charge at the striker elementals. The fury channeled in the Ultra Saw cleaves an elemental down. A swing from the second orc's power claw shatters the combat shield of another elemental, and the boss leader drives his claw right through its torso and rips the elemental into 2. The remaining elementals cut down the 2 orcs, and they run towards the boss leader. The boss leader flings the upper half of the elemental it slew off its claw at his assailants, which manage to distract one of the elementals, but the other elemental takes a swing with its energy sword, slicing across the orc boss's shoulder. The orcs deal a total of 6 wounds, and the elves do 3 in return. The orc boss roars in fury so hard that the striker elementals fail both their morale test and their fearless reroll and are routed. The heavily wounded Great Elemental still has 2 functioning flamers under its arms, and it scorches 4 orcs in front of it. Despite the heavy damage, the orcs pass the morale test and are eager to finish off the elven war machine. But the elemental wasn't quite done yet, as it casts Destroyer on the lone beast rider to its left, with all 4 spell tokens. The spellcasting succeeds, and the Psychic Blast destroys the beast rider. With the unit of striker elementals cleared out, the orc truck drives right into the winged elven noble and his gliders. With the wrecking ball added on the modified truck, it has a total of impact 8. 2 gliders were squashed. The strike back from the elves then caused 2 wounds against the truck, and the combat is a draw. The Retributors found the roar of the orc boss a little distracting, so they shoot him with 2 twin shard carbines, and enough shard rounds pierce the boss leader to silence him forever. The orc buggy maneuvers around the building where the beast rider was, and fires its rocket at the great elemental in hope to finish it off, but it misses. At the end of one of the more brutal turns to be aired on this channel, the orcs gain control of Objective 2 despite sustaining heavy casualties, and Objective 1 is contested, thus leaving the elves without control of any objectives. Will the orcs be able to overwhelm the elves with its remaining manpower, or should I say orc power? Or will the elves be able to turn the table and gain enough ground in the next 2 turns? The lone elven noble on the left activates first. He joins the heavily damaged Great Elemental on Objective 1 to offer him moral support, as well as adding an extra unit on the objective in case it is destroyed this turn. Within a fraction of a moment, he engages every brain cell protected in his skull as he calculates his next move. So I need to attack both the orc mob and the buggy. I'll target the buggy with the impact rocket, but what to do about the mob? I have 3 spell tokens, so I can cast either Soul Seeker or Destroyer. I could try Destroyer so that the target receives 6 hits, and there's a chance that it would wipe out the unit if it failed all its defense rolls. However, it's a level 2 spell, and I can only spend 1 extra token to get the spell to succeed on 3+. I could instead cast Soul Seeker, a level 1 spell, and that would go off on a 2+. It would only hit twice, and therefore would definitely not wipe out the unit, but it's at AP 2, so it will be harder to defend, and it will still almost certainly force a morale test. There's still a fair chance that Destroyer wouldn't wipe out the unit, so the outcome would be the same. In that case, I should go with Soul Seeker, as it would be more reliable. After all, how many times have I been disappointed with a failed 3+ roll? Soul Seeker it is. With his mind made up, the Elven Noble casts Soul Seeker against the remaining orcs in front of him. With a dice roll of 1, the spellcasting fails. With no little amount of regret, he fires his rocket at the buggy. The rocket detonates on the buggy's flank and flips it sideways. It takes 3 wounds, and with the failed morale test, it is shaken. The beast-mounted orc boss leads a charge against the winged elven noble and his gliders. Distracted by the previous ramming of the truck, the winged elves react to the charge a little too late. The beasts trample the gliders, and the noble's feeble attempt to parry the orc boss's attack fails. The vertical swing from the Ultra Claw shatters the noble's rapier, and the unrelenting blow slashes the elven leader diagonally from the shoulder down to the waist. The elven noble falls dead on the spot. The victorious Beast Riders turn towards their next foe and position to block and possibly intimidate the Retributors. The Great Elemental feels the presence of the Elven Noble beside it and feels invigorated. It successfully casts Soulseeker against the Orcs before it. The Psychic Blast kills one Orc. Then the Elemental musters all its strength to charge at the boss leader and his one remaining bodyguard. Its first swing of its energy sword slices off the bodyguard's head effortlessly, like a Damascus blade cutting through tofu. Immediately after, with the momentum of the swing, the Elemental spins on the spot and thrusts its sword, whose blade pierces right through the boss leader's heart. The Elemental emerges victorious. The Orc truck drives around the Beast Riders and rams into the Retributors. However, the trained Retributors once again form a shield wall. Despite the impact attack hitting 7 times out of 8, the Retributors manage to save 6 of them and the regeneration roll succeeds, so all Retributors survive the attack. In return, the Retributors swing their swords back, but not a single strike manages to penetrate the vehicle's armor plating. The combat is a draw. The stationary Elven artillery unleashes more mortar fire. With yet more successful rolls, all 4 attacks hit, and as each of them is multiplied by 3 due to blast, the Beastie Boys take 12 hits. 6 more wounds go through, killing both the boss leader's remaining bodyguards, and the boss himself takes a single wound. The boss leader lets out a roar out of pain and fury. His resolve is unshaken after passing a morale test. The buggy driver and the gunner manage to flip their vehicle back up and restart the engine. They unwaver themselves and are no longer shaken. The loud roar from the last boss leader irked the Retributors, and they move forward onto Objective 5 before turning around to shoot at the noisy Orc. The shard rounds deal 2 wounds on the boss leader, who now has 3 wounds remaining. The damage causes the boss to fall off his mount as he finally fails his morale test and becomes shaken. At the end of turn 3, the elves are starting to emerge with the advantage. With the boss leader shaken, the elves appear to have the upper hand in terms of strength, and they have managed to claim back objectives 1 and 5. But the orcs still control more objectives, and finally they get to activate first as we enter the final turn of the game. The Orc truck once again revs its engine and drives into the Retributors. All 8 impact attacks hit, and 3 Retributors are killed, leaving 2 models alive. With there no longer being the need for extra defense or regeneration, I naturally chose to keep the gunners alive. The strike back from the Retributors cause a clanging sound, as an elven blade bounces off the hull of the Orc vehicle. Luckily, the Retributors manage to stay their courage in order to perform their final duty. The Great Elemental targets the Orc buggy. It casts Soulseeker, which deals 1 wound. The Elven Behemoth runs at the buggy, whose bonnet is crumpled by the Psychic Blast. It sweeps up, lifting the buggy from the front. The driver and the gunner falls out of the vehicle and hit the ground. As they look up, they see their buggy lifted up in the air by the Great Elemental above its head with both its arms. The Orcs scream in horror as they realize the Elemental's intent, shortly before they are interrupted by the weight of the buggy crashing down right on them. The buggy and its crew are destroyed. The Orc boss leader grunts and brings himself back up. He saddles onto his wounded beast mount once more. He is now unwavered, but not able to do anything more. The remaining Retributor gunners move over to Objective 2, which had now freed up. They turn around and fire their shard carbines at the truck and cause 2 wounds. Now below half strength, the truck takes a morale test and passes, which is unfortunate for the elves, as it could have denied its claim over Objective 5. The Elven Noble runs all the way to Objective 4. At the end of the game, the elves lose Objective 5 to the orcs, but manage to gain control of Objectives 2 and 4, so they win 3-2. I cannot stress enough that was close. I lost a total of 2 units and still had more than half of the total units in my army, but had either of the Retributors or the Great Elemental failed their morale test, or worse still, been taken out, it could have been very tricky for me to have secured a victory by objectives. Still, I think I got most of the calls right. I deliberately deployed the objective markers as close to each other as possible, which seems to be the right approach if you're outnumbered. If I hadn't, I may not have been able to claim them back on the last turn. Having 3 spellcasters and not forgetting about them was very helpful. Against a lightly armoured mob army such as the one I faced, it's feasible to deal damage upon multiple units in a single activation, and when I'm so vastly outnumbered, I can't afford not to. In terms of dice roll, on the whole I think it was fairly even for both sides, but I felt particularly lucky with how the artillery rolled. It performed its job superbly every single turn. That said, every unit in my army made a difference and I realistically couldn't have asked for more.